Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble and sponsored by Chucky Suggs. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as KevlarPromDress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with T3RaiderFax, and we're ready to talk some Raiders football together.
And Heidi, I have a big old slice of blackbird pie for you today. I am so happy that I was right and you were wrong. So here you go.
Aw, thank you. It looks delicious. I was looking forward to it.
And we'll put a little ice cream on top of it there.
Can I have some whipped topping and a cherry too?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Today on the show, we'll take a look at the thrilling Thanksgiving Day overtime victory by the Raiders in Dallas. Then we'll set our sights on coming back home to Las Vegas and try to build a win streak as we prepare for this week's opponent, the Washington football team.
Okay, Raider Nation, we would love to hear from you. So here's how you can get in touch with us. Give us a call on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. You can also check us out on the web at onlynationpod.com.
Here's the latest Raider news.
The Las Vegas Raiders went on the road for Thanksgiving and came away with a 36-33 overtime victory over the Dallas Cowboys. That, coupled with the Broncos' win over the Chargers on Sunday, means that three teams are now tied for second place in the AFC West. Just a game behind Kansas City, who was on a bye week.
You know, about a week ago, I really thought the Raiders were done. When they lost to the Bengals, I really thought that was their playoff. And when they lost that, I thought, okay, we are cooked. But they came back and they played with a lot of heart, and they got the win against Dallas, and they're back in it. This AFC West division is wide open. We have two critical games coming up. We have this one coming up against Washington, and then we go to Kansas City. Anything's possible, but we have to put this game at the very first of the list, and we have to take care of business in Las Vegas against the Washington football team.
Yeah, that's why I said a couple weeks ago that it was time to panic, because our season really was on the line. But fortunately, something happened to them. It was the invasion of the body snatchers. And somebody, switched bodies with Greg Olsen and Derek Carr, put the ones that know how to play back in them and put them out on the field. It was really, really good to see. It was good to see them playing a good game, period, but it was really nice to see that victory.
And speaking of Derek Carr, I think you got some information about him coming up.
I do. Derek Carr threw for 373 yards and a touchdown with a 101.5 quarterback rating. This was Carr's first 300-plus yard passing game since Week 7 versus Philadelphia. It is also worth noting that the Raiders are undefeated in games in which Carr has thrown for at least 300 yards.
I still have to admit, as good a game as he played, probably my favorite moment in the entire contest was when Mariota came in and Derek Carr lined up in the receiver spot and signaled for the cornerback, come on at me. I got you.
That was adorable. But, the one thing that I've noticed about Carr when he hits 300 yards passing is he's really spreading the ball around to different receivers. This game, he hit, I believe it was 8 different receivers. And it's when he's spreading the ball, when he's going through his progressions, that he really seems to play so much better. And he wasn't doing that the previous 3 weeks. But it was good to see that in Dallas.
And he got Deshaun Jackson back in the game, too. He, of course, paid dividends. His third catch as a Raider turned out to be a touchdown. So I'm hoping that we see more of that.
Yeah, that was great. And Deshaun Jackson didn't just affect the game on that one fantastic play, but the pass interference calls too. The Cowboys just could not keep up with our receivers. Those weren't weak pass interference calls on them. They really were grabbing them and pushing them and holding on to them. They were genuine calls. They just had trouble keeping up with the receivers.
He was in poor Anthony Brown's head all day.
Oh, man. You know what? When I rewatched that game the next day, I actually felt bad for him. I mean, to have such a bad game in front of the entire world, the Raiders and Cowboys game was the most watched football game, regular season football game since 1990.
Yeah, I'm going to mention some of that a little bit later.
Yeah, there are 38.5 million people watching it, and he had to have the worst game of his career. I felt bad for the kid.
I didn't feel too bad for him. But, yeah, I guess you're right.
Well, I have a softer heart than you.
Probably true.
Darren Waller left the game early with a knee injury. He had also suffered from a back injury earlier in the week. Although the official injury report has not yet been released, it doesn't appear that the knee injury is a serious one, and many expect Waller to be back this coming Sunday. Coach Bisaccia said he is considered to be week to week.
Now, I will say two things. Number one, I really, really hope that Darren Waller is back. This offense is better when he is in the mix constantly. But having said that, when he went out of the game, the Raiders continued to produce. So if Derek Carr has his confidence up and continues to spread it around to the other receivers, even if Waller is not in the game, I don't think we're in trouble.
I almost think that Carr plays a little bit better with Waller out because he doesn't have that safety blanket to fall back on. It's like that's what causes him to look around and really read his progressions and look at the other receivers.
I think you're right. It's almost kind of like the defense does not know where he's going. When he's in the game, I think they actually know that he's keying in on Waller and they can double up on him.
Right. So while I definitely want Waller to be able to play, I don't think it would be the end of the world if he did miss a game.
Let's hope he doesn't miss the game.
In the reported roster moves since the Thanksgiving game, we are recording this on Monday night, the Raiders moved fullback Sutton Smith from the active roster back to the practice squad. Safety Jordan Brown was restored to the practice squad from the practice squad COVID-19 list, and long snapper Trent Sieg was placed on the COVID-19 list.
And I did hear late that one of the Cowboys was placed on the COVID-19 list, and there was some initial concern that might have affected some of the Raiders involved, but I think they've kind of cleared that hurdle, so I think that they're in the clear on that. So let's just cross our fingers and hope that there isn't a change in that between now and the Washington game.
Supposedly, Trent has 5 days now where he can test negative after 24 hours twice. And if he gets those two negative tests in, he should be able to play this week. But, we don't know if he has any symptoms or if anything's going on. So hopefully the Raiders will make a safety move and sign another long snapper just in case.
Is Liam McCullough still available? Has another team already signed him, or would it be a possibility to bring him in still?
I don't know, but I was just thinking that. He did a really good job this past offseason. I wouldn't mind seeing him in there. I would feel comfortable with him in there.
I would too.
Okay, now it's time for discussion. How about them boys? Sorry, I just couldn't resist. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly from this past week's game. Although with a much-needed win, it was mostly good.
All right, do you want to go first or you want me to take this?
You know what? I normally go first. Why don't you go first?
All right. Now, I really like the effort the guys showed throughout the game. The thing I did not like was the fact that the Raiders had to settle for 5 field goals. And we still seem to be committing penalties at very inopportune times. And the penalty they called on Andre James for moving his head, I mean, come on, man. If we can clean up the penalties, get Darren Waller back in, keep utilizing Deshaun Jackson, Hunter Renfrow, what can I say, and keep bringing Mariota into the game, all these things contributed to the win. And these things will continue to play a key role in a playoff push. And enough with the whining Cowboys fans. I get it. The officiating was terrible, but both teams got bad calls. Now, Anthony Brown just needs to learn how to cover fast receivers without grabbing them. And what was the deal with 2 consecutive offsides penalties to move the Raiders closer on that final kick? Unbelievable. But you got to say, the Raiders hung in there. They did what they needed to do, and they just won.
They certainly did. And I think that it is a game where you can really say it was a total team victory.
Absolutely.
Yes, I agree. 5 field goals was too many. But hey, Daniel Carlson, he was there with his leg, and he stood in there, and he delivered.
He had his big leg on the field and then a big turkey leg after the game.
He did, and it was a lot of fun to see. But that's one thing that still worries me, is our conversion in the red zone. Our conversion for touchdowns in the red zone continues to be poor. It's in the, I don't know what number we are in the league, but it's really low. It's like 28th or 30th or something.
I think it's about 28th, last I checked.
The Raiders need to be converting those trips to the red zone into touchdowns. It is great that we have Daniel Carlson, and he did a good job, but we can't count on field goals to get the victory. The Raiders need to score touchdowns. But what can I say? What you said, what can I say? Hunter Renfrow, probably the game of his career. He had, 134 yards receiving?
Yeah, and the amazing thing is, he keeps having those games. Everybody downplays him and underestimates him, and they give him the field wide open, and he continues to produce.
Yeah, and they know that we're going to him. They know that we're going to either Waller or Renfrow, and they're still not able to stop it. That's how you know you've got a good wide receiver. And Deshaun Jackson, it was really nice to see him finally have his real homecoming with the team. I only had 3 receptions, but that was 103 yards and a touchdown.
Zay Jones showed up, too.
Yeah, Zay Jones had, 5 receptions for 59 yards?
Yeah.
I'm going off of memory, so I don't quote me on these.
It was close. I'm not looking at the exact numbers, but you're right there at it, if not dead on.
Yeah, so it was a really great team victory to see. It was good to see Carr doing his progressions and just spreading the ball around. It was good to see everything. The one thing I would have liked to see a little bit more is the defense had opportunities for turnovers that they didn't take advantage of. Stuff like that needs to be cleaned up. But overall, it was a great team victory, and it was the one thing that the Raiders needed, because now the Raiders do still control their own destiny when it comes to the playoff picture. And that's all what the Raiders needed. They're in control, and they say what happens to them.
The other thing that I really liked was when Derek Carr got flushed out of the pocket, he just tucked it and ran. And he picked up a good chunk of yardage, and I was thinking, please don't extend the ball toward the end zone. That's all I can think. Fortunately, he got out of bounds before he stuck the ball out.
Did anybody check the refs to see if they had index cards on them?
Oh, I think they took all the index cards and burned them.
That is one thing about the Cowboys fans and Jerry Jones so upset about the officiating. You know what? Both teams had 14 fouls. Both teams had 14 penalties.
Right. And I can't say that a lot of them were. There were a couple of that were questionable calls. The Raiders had a couple of questionable ones, and as well as the Cowboys, but some of them were just blatant.
Yeah.
And a couple of them were just stupid. I mean, the furrow penalty where he tried to project off of one of the linemen on an extra point or field goal attempt, that was just stupid.
It ended up working to the Raiders' advantage, though.
It did. But that Andre James penalty, centers do that every play.
He did it the next play, and it wasn't called.
I know.
Okay, next up on the schedule is the Washington football team. How do you see the Raiders faring in this game? T3?
All right, now, the Raiders have done everything in batches so far this season. They started out the season with a 3-game winning streak, followed by 2 losses in a row, then 2 wins, followed by 3 losses. So with last week's win, let's see if that pattern still holds true. Now, I think the Raiders are back on track, particularly with their offense. Now, I believe the Washington football team, even though they beat Tampa Bay, is ripe for the picking. It's a home game. The WFT is coming off a short week. In fact, they're getting ready to play the Seahawks as we broadcast. And the Raiders are still in must-win mode. Now, I'm predicting that the Raiders' offense will put up 28 points and hold the opponents to just 17. So your final score is Raiders win 28-17 to push their record to 7-5.
Okay, and I also see the Raiders coming out on top. I am going to give them the score of 31-20.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, little unique numbers. And I think that it is definitely going to be a victory. And the reason I think it is this little news story has started to gain some traction lately. There is a poster on Reddit who flipped a coin at the start of the season. And every single game has been predicted correctly by the coin.
I've seen this.
And Raiders fans, let me tell you, the coin predicts a victory against the Washington football team. That says it. That's all we need to know. We don't need to look at anything matching up. We don't need to consider Taylor Heineke. We don't have to worry about McLaurin, the wide receiver. The coin says the Raiders are going to win, and that's all we need to know.
If the coin continues to hold true, then we are in good shape. Let's keep our fingers crossed and the coin in the air.
Yes, I did actually download the sheet of paper with the predicted victories on it. So I do have that on my phone now. I'll be able to track it. If anyone is curious, the final record that the coin predicted was a 10-7 record with the 7th playoff seed.
And that's exactly where I had them before the season started. So that's kind of scary.
Are you the one with the coin?
No, that is not me.
Okay. Well, Reddit's kind of anonymous, so I just wanted to make sure. But yeah, so Raiders 31 and Washington football team 20.
I will take it.
So neither one of us will be eating any blackbird pie next week.
I hope that we can both be happy next week like we are this week.
I hope so too. I have faith that we will. Okay, T3, how about bringing us your top 3 for the week?
T3's top 3.
All right, here is this week's top 3. Now, Heidi, you mentioned this earlier. Number 1, the NFL on CBS reported that the Las Vegas versus Dallas Thanksgiving Day game was watched by an estimated 38.531 million viewers, up 26% from last year's comparable game window, and the most watched NFL regular season game since 1990. You can say a lot of things about these two teams, but when they come together, it's a really big deal. The NFL benefits, and the fans, well, this year anyway, the Raiders fans certainly benefited. Number 2, Derek Carr currently leads the league in passing yards on offense, and Denzel Perryman currently leads the league in tackles on defense. I can't think of the last time 2 Raiders led those 2 categories at the same time this late in the season. Great job out of both of those guys. And number 3, I thought it was worth mentioning that on a team that boasts the only punter in the Hall of Fame, Ray Guy, of course, currently Las Vegas Raiders punter A.J. Cole leads the league in punting average. His 45 punts have a 51.2-yard average, which is almost 2 yards better than the next punter on the list, Andy Lee of the Arizona Cardinals. Cole had 1 punt earlier in the season that went 71 yards. Now that's pinning him deep. And that is this week's top 3.
And those are some great points that you mentioned. The television audience for the game was incredible. 38.5 million viewers. Largest viewing audience of a regular season game since 1990. That's pretty impressive. Everyone wants to see the Raiders and the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. And I have to admit, I was really scared about the Raiders playing in Dallas. Actually, they play in Arlington, so They're not really the Dallas Cowboys.
True.
But that the Raiders were playing in Dallas on Thanksgiving because the Raiders typically have problems with that game. So I was not very confident in their ability to pull out the win, but they did, and it was great to see. And we had a wonderful Thanksgiving get-together with Angria's family, and we didn't pay that much attention to the game at first because it was right when people were coming up to eat. But the last half of that game, everyone was pretty glued to the screen.
How's the little assassin doing these days?
The little assassin is doing good. He came back from his grandparents' house, Andrea and I had both suffered from the Rona. The Rona bug got us.
Right.
So he went to grandparents, and he
I'm
stayed with
glad
them.
both of you all are feeling better.
Oh yeah, we're both feeling pretty good. And little guy, he went there for about a week and a half, and they brought him back for Thanksgiving. So it was a thankful and joyous time.
Good, good. All right. Now, I do want to make one offhanded comment. This is not really Raiders related, but the guy who had to be the happiest guy on the face of the planet for Thanksgiving had to be Los Angeles Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford, because he finally, for the first time in his long career, not only did he get to have Thanksgiving with his family, but he did not have to show up in Detroit for another Thanksgiving waxing.
Oh man, and I was hoping that the Lions would win. I was rooting for the little guys.
But you just knew coming down to the end that the Bears were going to kick a field goal and win the game.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
They are a cursed franchise. At least they're not going to go 0-17 this year.
Correct. They could go 0-16-1.
They could. It would be the first time in league history.
First for everything.
Yeah. But yes, Derek Carr does lead the league in passing yards. That's nice to see. That's hard to believe with some of the passers that are in the league right now. But he's on pace to hit 5,300 yards this season.
Wow. Well, the thing that really amazes me, when we signed Denzel Perryman in the offseason, I thought, yeah, okay, this is a nice pickup, but he's not going to stay healthy. He might be a bit piece for this defense, but he's not anybody we could really rely on. Boy, was I wrong. He has just come out and been on fire and been Mr. Dependable and Mr. Everywhere for this defense.
Yeah, I figured he was just a token signing, kind of like, okay, Gus, you want your guy, we're going to sign your guy, and, then he's going to get injured, and then, ho-hum, nothing happened. And Denzel Perryman has been on fire. He has been leading the league in tackles throughout most of the season. And if he hasn't
been steady.
Yeah, if he hasn't led the league, he has been right up there in one of the top slots.
I'm so happy I was wrong about him. I'll be the first one to stand up and admit, hey, you got props from me because I was totally wrong on this one.
Yeah, and Ray Guy is my favorite punter in all of football history. I've got his autographed football card hanging up on my wall. It is great to see A.J. Cole continue in his legacy. 71 yards on a punt is incredible. That's getting up there with Raider records. In the Cowboy game, he had a long punt of 68 yards.
Right.
So he is consistently putting it back there, and he's pinning teams inside the 20, and he is just, he continues the long legacy of Raiders punters, and it's good to see.
Yep.
Do you have anything for Hammer?
No, other than the referees, which we've mentioned ad nauseum many, many times. And again, anytime there's 28 penalties called in a game, that's a lot of penalties. But both teams committed a lot of errors, but there were several that were just overlooked and several that were just miscalled. The refereeing's got to get better.
All right, give us a call at 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or text message at that number, or send in a message via social media, and we'll share your thoughts. And this week on Raider Roots, we'll go back to the year 1976. And not only was that the year I was born, I believe that was a Super Bowl year. Yes?
Well, there you go. That was a good year, 1976, for lots of reasons.
It is, and everyone will have to listen when it's released on Wednesday to hear the story.
And then, as a follow-up to that, we will actually go to the Super Bowl.
Ooh, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
And how about we find out what we do or we don't know?
Now it's time for another edition of Did You Know? In this segment, I will ask Heidi and the rest of our listening audience a Raiders-related question with 3 possible answers to choose from. It's multiple choice. So just give it your best guess. Now, Heidi, I'm going to predict you're going to get this one right. So here goes. Here is this week's question. Which team finished with a record of 11-5 and still managed to not make it to the playoffs? Was it A, the Los Angeles Raiders in 1984, B, the Denver Broncos in 1985, or C, the New England Patriots in 2008?
Aw, T3, you just lobbed up a softball for me. I don't even have to guess on this one. That was the New England Patriots in 2008, led by Matt Castle, after Tom Brady was wiped out of the game for the season in the first game of the year.
Well, Heidi, you're absolutely right, but you had a 2-3 chance of getting this correct because the Denver Broncos in 1985 actually went 11-5 and did not make the playoffs. So B and C are actually the correct answers this week.
I don't care about the Broncos.
Yeah, you're right. Nobody does.
Yeah. Broncos, whatever. The Patriots, I remember that year, I ended up going to the season opener of the Chargers. Chargers versus the Panthers. Not because I wanted to, I just wanted to go to an NFL game, and I happened to be visiting my friend who lived just down the street from the stadium in San Diego. And let me tell you, when the scoreboard operator came over the loudspeaker system to announce that Tom Brady had been wiped out for the year, the roar in the stadium was deafening. It was horrible.
I can imagine. I can
Everyone
imagine.
was cheering.
I can imagine.
Everyone was cheering. It was awful.
That's bad, but it comes with the territory, right?
Yeah.
All right, Raider Nation. Now it's time for Heidi's Heroes.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
This week's hero, there's actually going to be two heroes this week, and they're both going to be game heroes. They're going to be the little guys that never get celebrated. We've already talked about him this episode, but Daniel Carlson, 5 for 5 on field goals with a long of 56 yards. And that was not a simple 56-yarder. Had he not made that field goal, the Cowboys would have had excellent field position. And what was it, about 3 minutes left to score? All they had to do was just score a field goal. So a lot of nerves riding on that. Daniel Carlson nailed 56-yard, 3 for 3 extra points. He was just fantastic. Have they announced the special teams player of the week yet?
I don't think they have, but I was going to kind of piggyback on what you were saying with Daniel Carlson. Even though those two penalties back-to-back on the last field goal moved them a little bit closer, that's got to rattle a field goal kicker. When you keep kicking it over and over again, you've got to be rattled somewhat. So he just stood up there, cool as the other side of the pillow, as Stuart Scott used to say, and just drilled that field goal.
Yeah, I'm still a little bit conditioned by Janikowski with some more of the misses. Carlson does have a better conversion percentage, and I don't know, I'm just a Raiders fan. I'm so used to having my heart broken.
True. I always think about, and this goes way, way back, I always think back to the year 2010 when Janikowski missed a very short field goal against the Arizona Cardinals, which if he had made that field goal and everything played out the way it did, would have sent the Raiders into the playoffs in 2010.
And my second hero, we've already talked about him, punter A.J. Cole. He punted 5 times for 243 yards with a long of 68. And he pinned the Cowboys inside the 20 4 times. Talk about flipping the field. These two guys, Carlson and Cole, we got to wrap them up.
Don't forget, Cole is the one who has those perfect placements for Carlson on the field goal kicks, too.
Yeah, I mean, these two guys, we need to wrap them up. They are just gems.
I agree.
So it does make me nervous that Trent Sigg is on the COVID-19 list because he is a very important part of that kicking battery. But hopefully he will be back. If not, hopefully Liam Nicola is available. If not, I'm sure they'll find somebody who's a good replacement. But yeah, I just I had to go with those two guys. You know, the kickers, the punters, they never get the adulation, but they certainly deserved it in the Cowboys game. And they usually deserve it in every game.
And I'll tell you, they picked a good time to stand up and be seen because the national TV audience, everybody got a good look at both Carlson and Cole.
Yeah. And that about does it for this week on the Only Nation podcast. If you'd like to help support the show, you can send in a donation at paypal.me/onlynationpod. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Chucky Thugs, for sponsoring this week's episode. And you can find me, Heidi Stabbert, on social media as at KevlarPromDress on Twitter and Instagram, or Heidi Stabbert on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube on Captain Jack Rackham's channel every other Tuesday night. I join the DC wench Peggy Holmes and Andrea Trask on the Captain and His Wenches show.
All right, Raider Nation, we want you with us every step of the way during the regular season. So here's what we would like you to do. Send us your name and address so we can send you some free Raider swag and podcast stickers. Call us and tell us what you want to know. Throw us an interesting nugget that we can use on one of our upcoming episodes and become a part of what we're doing here. Remember, this is the Only Nation, and we want you to be a part of it. So call us 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Call us now and join the Only Nation podcast family. There are two easy ways to find me on social media. You can send me a tweet at T3_sports703. Or you can hit me up on Facebook at Thom, Thom Jones. I want to also thank you for all your continued support of the Raider Roots podcast. This week, it's 1976.
As always, we look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, everyone, go Raiders.
We are not just a nation. We are the only nation.